Think your player has what it takes to get recruited? The truth is, many athletes blow their chances because they don't know the do's and don'ts of recruiting. Let me tell you exactly what these college coaches are looking for. My name is Evan Mendoza and I have 7 years of professional baseball experience, and I got recruited to play at NC State University where I spent 3 years. I've also gone through every stage of the recruiting process. Let me share what I've learned so I can help your player stand out. And also, if your player is ready to start communicating with these college coaches but just don't know what to say, I've got you covered. Download my free email template down below in the description. It's the exact framework that I would recommend using to make a great first impression. All right, so let's talk about some of the do's of the college recruiting process. All right, so first and foremost, college coaches love when you, the player, takes the initiative to actually communicate with them, right? I think this is the time of where you're a high school baseball player, you're, probably becoming a young adult. Hopefully you're becoming a little bit more mature. So we don't necessarily need mommy or daddy to reach out to these college coaches on our behalf. It kind of just shows that we don't actually want it and our parents want it a little bit more than we do. So taking that initiative is really important to really just show that, like, yes, we want it. We are taking care of our, ability to hopefully play baseball at the next level. And this is something that's just really important as far as how we progress, how we mature, and basically in this whole recruiting process. Another area that I think is really, really important, but is also sometimes overlooked, is how coachable we are in the game of baseball. Because being coachable isn't necessarily just like improving our metrics, right? Being coachable shows that we have the ability to make adjustments, hopefully sooner rather than later. Ultimately, like some players, maybe your typical high school baseball player takes this long to make an adjustments on, let's say, like cutoffs and relays, as far as positioning or like spacing to the outfielders, let's say as a shortstop. But you want to be that player that takes like this much time to make that adjustment, to be able to think the game, to understand and really just like really take that information in, digest it, and implement it as soon as possible, right? The quicker the better. And this is an area that really isn't taught, but you have to be able to think the game to that level, right? And as far as the mental development and really just like that baseball IQ, we just need to be able to speed that up because, if you're in, college and you're doing a team practice, you never want to be the weakest link of a chain, right? And ultimately, these college teams are created on, maybe 30-man roster, whatever it may be nowadays, because the rules are always changing. But you don't want to be the weakest link that's holding the team back from having success, from having wins, and you don't want to not know where to be on a bunt D. You don't want to be that player that doesn't understand that you're supposed to be backing up a base or what to do in, a cutoff or a relay. So these are all areas of, team fundamentals that in college we would do every single day. In pro ball, we would actually call them fundies, where we would do team defense, first and thirds, pickoffs, rundowns, for like everything, right? And these are the small little things that create champions, especially at the college level. When bunting is a little bit more prevalent than in the big leagues or in professional baseball, but these are the important things that I really want to emphasize to you to understand how to be coachable in those situations where, if you attend a college camp, you want to make sure that these college coaches understand that you're able to pick up on information quickly. Maybe you're asking the good quality questions that show you're thinking the game, and this is where college coaches can very easily be impressed. Last but not least, the last do in the whole college recruiting process is to be able to back up the stats and metrics that you're ultimately showing maybe in that initial email. Again, showing that initiative right here, that's going to be something that's really important, showcasing that you actually want it. So we're going to initiate that conversation via email. That's going to be something that's great. But if, let's say, your stats and metrics don't necessarily add up, let's say you're a senior throwing 65 miles an hour, it's probably not going to cut it to play D1 baseball at LSU. So making sure that we have those metrics or maybe even stats to show that, like, hey, we are a good quality baseball player. And I do have a training here on YouTube. The difference between basically stats and metrics, I would definitely lean towards more metrics than stats, just because metrics are a little bit more objective. I would stay away from stats because you never know if, like, the scorekeeper, for example, just gives everyone a hit and everyone's hitting 700 on the high school baseball team. So, stats aren't as important as metrics. There's a video that, is on my YouTube channel. Definitely would recommend you guys checking it out. But making sure that we are basically just physically developing. That way we're showing that these college coaches that not only, yes, we're taking the initiative, but also we're developing. And on the note of just really taking that initiative, when we're emailing these college coaches, I think a lot of people fall into the trap of it's not the right time to reach out to these college coaches. And in all reality, there's never going to be a perfect time to start emailing these college coaches. If we wait until junior or senior year, when we have all the video, when we're in the middle of our season, that might be too late, because August 1st is when these college coaches can actually respond back to our emails. But in the case that we're actually trying to have a successful August 1st, meaning college coaches are actually picking up the phone and calling either you or your player, that shows that they're really interested, and you also are on that short list of players that they're actually excited to communicate with, seeing if there's any type of updates, what team you're going to be playing for in the fall time or maybe in the spring, or how the team's looking, right? These are going to be the topics of conversation if they pick up the phone and dial either you or your son for August 1st. But how does that happen? Basically showing that we have taken care of the recruiting process, and showing that initiative by emailing these college coaches beforehand, right? Our sophomore year, even though we're not necessarily expecting a response. And what I like to say is, like, let's say August 1st passes by, and let's say, Johnny Smith is a player that they're looking for or looking at. Maybe they've attended a camp, and maybe they just, broke out on the scene, and his numbers, all of a sudden he's a right-handed pitcher. He's 6'3" and he's throwing 96 all of a sudden, and it's like, whoa, who is this guy? What they're going to do in their email, let's just say their Gmail account, they're going to search Johnny Smith. And hopefully there's going to be a good amount of emails, let's say like 4 or 5 emails. And let's say sophomore year, the very first day of sophomore year, Johnny Smith sent an email to, LSU's head coach, right? Or whatever, assistant coach. Maybe he was 5'8" and he was throwing 78 miles an hour his sophomore year, but now he's a junior and he's throwing 96 and he hit a growth spurt. These college coaches are excited to see that, either you or your player is developing and basically just going up and to the right, as you can see right there. And that's why there's never going to be a perfect time to start emailing college coaches, because you don't also want to be going down and to the right for obvious reasons, but showing that you have the ability to develop. And again, this kind of, tailors into the being coachable, right? If you're being coachable, whether you're on a program right now or you're trying to increase your velocity, being coachable doesn't necessarily mean your head coach or your travel ball coach tells you something and you're implementing it. You also have to learn how to be a coach for yourself as well. So that's another area of making sure that we're taken care of in the whole college recruiting process. Next up, the don'ts in the whole college recruiting process. And the very first don't is to rely on anybody else other than you to get the work done. That's the way that we can guarantee the results we're ultimately looking for. If we rely on a high school coach or a travel ball coach who, guys, to be completely honest with you, when I played travel ball in Florida, very competitive high school, and college travel ball as well, summer travel ball, I was told many, many different times, we're going to help you get recruited. And that was a very common message. Different teams, different organizations would tell me. The matter of fact is, how I got that scholarship from NC State was initiating that conversation with the recruiting coordinator, Chris Hart. If it wasn't for actually initiating that conversation, would it have ever have happened? Probably not, right? So if you're relying on a travel ball coach to help you out, I would reconsider the bandwidth that he has to be able to initiate multiple conversations with multiple colleges, because at the end of the day, the entire travel ball team more than likely wants to play college baseball, and the entire high school team would love the opportunity to play college baseball. So is your high school coach really getting paid for the outbound dials or emails or initiating those conversations with college coaches? Probably not, right? And they have many other things like what jerseys they're going to be wearing in the summer ball tournament, in the summer ball circuit, what field they're going to be playing on, things like that, writing the lineup, right? So think about if you have a team of 15 players and each player has a list of like 30 or 40 schools that they would love to get outreach to. Do you think your travel ball coach is going to be able to fulfill all that work for each and every player? Not just you, but also the rest of the team? Probably not. And this is where I want to be completely transparent. Like, yes, if LSU is interested in Johnny Smith, they're going to, of course, reach out to Johnny Smith's, travel ball coach, maybe high school coach, and yes, they're going to answer those phone calls without a doubt. If you expect the travel ball coach or high school coach to actually outreach to that LSU coach to initiate that conversation, it's probably not going to happen, guys. So I want to make sure that you guys have that full understanding of, yes, you have to do that initial contact yourself to be able to get those results that you're ultimately looking for. And again, when you're doing those, emails to college coaches, it's always really important to track like how many have gotten delivered, opened, clicked, responded to. And if you have no understanding of how to track all that, don't worry. Inside my academy, that's something that I teach all of my students. So another don't in this whole college recruiting process is don't be a spammer. Or a scammer, really. Showcase obviously like true results, metrics, things like that. But don't spam these college coaches multiple times throughout the week, giving them useless information time and time again. It is important to, of course, show that initiative and give them regular updates. But at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need to spam them, sending them multiple messages in a week, right? I would say the most common approach, especially like freshman, sophomore year before August 1st, is like every 3 months to be able to give teams or colleges that you've already reached out to some sort of update so they have an understanding of like where you're currently at, maybe your high school or travel ball season, what tournaments you're going to be playing on or for. These are going to be all things that these college coaches will appreciate because then they can, start to formulate a plan on which showcases or tournaments that they're going to be in attendance, maybe in the summer ball circuit. The last don't that you don't want to do in the whole college recruiting process is being a fan, guys. Being a fan is never a good move. And what I like to say when you hit pro ball, basically this is what's referred to as being a fanboy. You don't want to be a fanboy for LSU. You don't want to be a fanboy for whatever university you're reaching out to. Saying things like, hey, do you need a 2027 shortstop, right? Because at the end of the day, that's coming across as you're a fan of LSU, you're a fan of whatever school that you're reaching out to, and the matter of fact is they are going to want you even if they have a ton of shortstops, right? That's the thing. If you have a really strong bat and you're a top prospect, guess what? I heard from the University of Miami head coach, Jim Morris. He told me, and the entire camp that I attended when I was in middle school, we don't just recruit a shortstop, a third baseman, a second baseman, a first baseman. What we like to do at the University of Miami, and this is when they were absolutely killing it year after year, and they still are a really solid program, but they would recruit 4 shortstops, and of course more than 4 shortstops to get depth, but they would have one shortstop play short, one shortstop play third, one shortstop play second, one shortstop play first, right? So if you're a first baseman in high school and you think that you're going to be able to just like transition smoothly into becoming a first baseman in college, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I will, be honest with you. At NC State, it was me playing third base, which I was a shortstop in high school. Joe Danan, which was A-Rod's nephew, he played shortstop in high school. He also played shortstop in college. I also played some shortstop in pro ball later in my career in AAA. Second base was Will Wilson, and I think he's actually gotten up to AAA with the Giants. And basically after Joe and I both got drafted in 2017, Will Wilson, moved over to shortstop. He's a great shortstop as well. He played short in high school. And then first base, my junior year, was Steven Patera. He was a shortstop at his high school in North Carolina. So as you can tell, a very solid position to play in high school as shortstop. I'm not saying it's impossible to be a third baseman only or whatnot, but that's just something that, I always thought about because that is really important. So giving that impression when you're emailing these college coaches like, hey, do you need a whatever, doesn't make sense because ultimately if they want you, they're going to get you. And if you're coming across as like, I want LSU and you might not necessarily want me, that's not going to be a good win-win, situation for these college coaches. So you want to make sure that you're just, initiating that conversation in the email template. Again, you can download down below to just give, basic information, quick hitters, and then give them a little bit of a detour as far as next steps if they are interested in you as a player. The next area is basically what these college coaches are truly looking for, right? So I'm going to go ahead and draw a little bit of a graph right here, 3 circles. They're definitely not evenly spaced, but one is basically just being an athlete. right? Being an athlete obviously is important. I don't need to describe this anymore to you guys, but if you're throwing 95 miles an hour, that's, being an athlete, you're understanding your body. But if you're throwing around 90 miles an hour, that's going to be a good test as far as your ability to play baseball at the next level. If you have an exit velocity of like 95 off the tee, that's going to be a good representation of you having that athletic ability to play at the next level. And if you run like a sub 7-second 60, that's also going to be something that showcases to these college coaches that yes, you are a true athlete. Next up, being coachable. We already kind of hit on this as well, but basically that coachability to make sure that you're able to make adjustments, guys. What I like to say is high school baseball players might make adjustments like week to week. College baseball players might make, changes, every game, let's say. And then maybe low end, middle of the pack minor leaguers, let's say high A and, maybe double A players, those guys are able to make adjustments maybe at bat to at bat. But those big leaguers, the greatest hitters in the world, those guys are able to make adjustments pitch to pitch, right? Which makes them so great. So having that coachability, not necessarily the coachability where a coach tells them something, but for them to be their own best coach and their adjustability pitch to pitch, those kind of fall into the same category as well. And then last but not least, and this is if you're a high school baseball player, you might get bored that I'm talking about this, but basically the character, right? These college coaches want a good teammate, right? I saw it firsthand in professional baseball. Let's say a backup, maybe even a backup catcher or a bullpen catcher. They would keep those guys around for like a decade sometimes because they were great teammates. They were great to hang around. They brought energy into the clubhouse, and ultimately you want that type of guy for the rest of the team because the team feeds off of that energy. So being a good, being a good teammate really does make the biggest of difference, and college coaches pick up on that as well. So making sure that you have that character, built out, and you're not super selfish. Obviously, those are bad body language, things like that. That's something that we definitely want to stay clear from. But basically, what I like to say is like where all these intersect, that might be like D1. The other areas where let's say you only have the character and maybe coachability. Or, let's just say you have that athletic ability and you have good character, but you're not so great at making adjustments. That could be, D2. And then let's say you only have that athletic ability right here. That might be, D3. That might not necessarily be the most accurate representation, right? But this is a high level approach on what the college coaches are really looking for. So taking it back to like basically my example of how I got committed to NC State University, it also really, the bigger picture right here is just basically overall performance, right? If you don't have the best performance, you're not going to get committed. So I was lucky enough, I say maybe lucky enough, but Chris Hart was able to come to one of my games where I pitched in a WWBA perfect game, Final Four game. I was playing for FTB at the time, and I performed extremely well, like a complete game shutout, around 70 pitches. Played really well, picked off a couple of batters, and that showed that I had that like kind of coachability within, because obviously a coach didn't tell me to pick off when I saw the base runner have a big lead. So that kind of showed that, Coach Hart, I knew what I was doing. I also, gave up a couple of base hits, obviously, and I didn't necessarily shrug my shoulders or show bad body language. I just, brushed it off onto the next pitch. And of course, I was an athlete. I showed that with my performance and my metrics. I think I topped out at 90 in that specific game. So, before that, though, it felt like I was completely lost in the whole college recruiting process. I didn't have that much traction, but after that performance, my travel ball coach shook my hand and told me, now I get to choose where I want to play college baseball. And I thought that was just an unreal experience, unreal story, really, because after a week or so, NC State, among my top 3 schools, which was University of Virginia and Rice, they all offered me, and that basically told me, hey, I'm ready to go D1, and I was very excited. So this was basically a high-level approach on what these college coaches are truly looking for. If you want to help your player take the guesswork of communicating with these college coaches, again, go down below in the description to download my free email template. It's simple, proven, and sets your player apart. And if you're looking for more personalized recruiting guidance, go down below in the description to book a call with me today.